We all have a story to tell, and your story matters. Now more than ever, that's why we've created CINE Youth Fest, a cinema festival and a platform for independent voices, positive change, stories of heroism from the lens of a Latinx experience. Join the adventure on our website, cineyouthfest.org. There, you will find all you need to participate in the competition. The rules of the game, Latinx in film, where you find out how important we really are. Classes behind the camera with people who know. Stories from others like you who have a dream, big ideas, and awesome goals. Raise your voice to be heard. Show off to be seen. And be part of history sharing your story. Lights, camera, acción. Because tú cuentas. Powered by HITN.
Good afternoon. I am Jessie Fuentes, and I am your host today. Thank you for joining us. Today, you are watching Tu Cuentas CINE Youth Festival, powered by HITN, a broadcasting network that has allowed 44 homes across the nation to receive educational programming. Today, you are watching a conversation amongst X. Really watching a storytelling of different genres, a conversation through murals. And today we have invited phenomenal muralists from all over the country that have dedicated murals to storytelling and telling a narrative here in the US and in Puerto Rico. I am super excited to be here with these fantastic artists, extremely talented people. Why don't we begin by watching my promo video. HITN does a phenomenal job at putting together packages that really tell the narrative of who we are and what to expect. Let's take a look.
Jessie Fuentes is an activist and educator in the Humboldt Park community in Chicago, Illinois. Popularly known as Paseo Boricua, Fuentes has participated in work empowering young people in the community, the campaign to release Oscar Lopez Rivera, anti-gentrification work, education reform, and for the independence of Puerto Rico. Fuentes is currently the Director of Policy at the Puerto Rican Cultural Center in Chicago. They strive to see a more just world through advocacy and policy.
You can help him. Just think of a way and ask yourself, what would Oscar say? Oscar would say he is a product of colonial aggression, that he has been beat up and made empty by the cycle of oppression. But our people need love. Our people have been raped, pushed over and shoved, and it must stop. We must pick up our women, nurture our children, and show our youth there's no need to be afraid of the cops, you see. This is just another example of what this system has done to our people. And this system will continue if we can treat them like our equal. Que viva Puerto Rico libre.
Wow, they have an ability to make you feel legendary through these promotional packages. Job well done. I love it. I'm going to use it for everything I do moving forward. Nonetheless, today's not about me. Today's not about my activism. Today is about the storytelling that has been able to be told through murals. And today we have a phenomenal conversation ahead with great artists. Let's bring on one of our first panelists. Betsy, I can't wait to see you. Waiting for Betsy to come.
Betsy Casanas is a visual and public artist, an educator, a community activist, and an organizer. She is the director of a Seed on Diamond gallery and founder of Semilla Arts Initiative. She has 26 years of experience in the arts and has created over 50 murals worldwide. Having worked in communities of color around the world, she understands the importance of communities of color to see themselves reflected in the artwork and in the leaders of their community.
Betsy, how are you?
Hey, nice job. I like that video.
No, that's awesome. You have done some phenomenal work, not just across the country, but in Puerto Rico. Your murals have been inspiring. They're colorful. They tell a narrative. I feel super lucky to be in your presence right now. How are you feeling?
Thank you. Oh, I'm super excited to be here sharing with you guys. I'm definitely in really good company today. So very excited to see everyone's work.
Why don't you share with the audience where you're streaming from today? Because it seems we're all in different places.
Yeah, right now I'm in Philly. I'm in my house. The first floor of my house is a Seed on Diamond gallery. It's a gallery that I opened up in 2010. It's a community space where we open the doors for communities of color to tell their stories through visual arts, poetry, film, music. So awesome. We're in a Seed on Diamond gallery.
Awesome. I know that we have artists from all over the world streaming with us today. There's one particular individual who had to wake up at an abnormal hour to join us. I'm not going to disclose where he's at because we are going to have a conversation very soon about where he needed to stream from. But let's take a look at the video package of OSVALDO before we have the privilege of meeting him today.
OSVALDO BUDET is a Puerto Rican artist and graduate of Maryland Institute of College of Art. His work explores the physical and political dimensions of colonization and post-colonization as a reflection of the culture and the interests of the systems we inhabit. Since 2008, he has been living and working in Berlin, Germany, San Juan, Puerto Rico, New York City, USA, and Australia. In 2012, he was a fellow of the Hanse-Wissenschaftskolleg for Advanced Study, where he collaborated with the Alfred Wegener Institute for Polar and Marine Research as artist in residence at the AWIPEV Scientific Research Station in the Arctic.
OSVALDO, let's see you. How are you today?
I'm good.
OSVALDO, please disclose to the world, what hour is it and where are you streaming from?
It's 6 in the morning and I'm in Australia right now. I live in Australia. I moved here 2 years ago. No, a year and a half ago. Yeah.
Wow, I thank you so much. It's a privilege to see you. I haven't seen you since you painted the mural on the side of Bruquena. I have the privilege of seeing your work. We're going to talk a lot more about your reasons for politically creating murals and the narratives that they tell. But why don't we first see the package of one of our own artists here in Humboldt Park, very good friends of mine. Let's take a look at the mural package of CRISTIAN Roldan.
CRISTIAN Roldan uses mural painting as a community-based tactic to resist invisibilization and objectification by outsider narratives. This practice serves to codify the local narratives to challenge the indoctrination by hegemonic discourses. His art practice and research are based on a dialogue approach where mural painting narratives emerge from the community. He creates public art with the objective to intervene in public spaces as a way to raise consciousness, stimulate the imagination, and preserve the collective memory.
CRISTIAN, how are you? You're on mute. Make sure to unmute yourself.
Hi, Jessie. Good to see you again. I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for being here. We're going to get into a conversation about all of your artwork very soon. I want to make sure that we introduce the package for our final panelist today. She is a phenomenal artist. She does work all over the diaspora. She has quite a bit of work right here in Chicago. Let's take a look at the package of Sam KIRK.
Sam KIRK is a multidisciplinary artist who explores culture and identity politics through her practice. Her artwork focuses on a variety of intersections, which encompass a call to celebrate differences and enact change. KIRK's public murals often address social issues as she intentionally uses the public space to spark dialogue around topics of equality and visibility for women, communities of color, and the LGBTQIA community.
Sam, how are you feeling? I know you are working today, right?
I am indeed working today. I'm good. A little tired, but good.
No, it's so great to have you here. I want to remind everyone we are here on Great Stories in Another Genre, storytelling through murals. And we have the privilege of having 4 muralists who have been able to bless the entire diaspora and the island. Let's bring all of our panelists in. Betsy, OSVALDO, CRISTIAN, and Sam. You guys are probably some of the most talented people across the nation and in the island. And I'm super lucky to be able to host and moderate this panel. So thank you all for being here. I want to give us just some quick guiding principles to follow as we go into our discussion. Try to ensure that your answers are limited to 1 minute and a couple seconds. There's so many meaningful things that we all want to contribute, and we all want to hear from everyone. And so I want to thank you, OSVALDO. I want to affirm your ability to wake up early to join this conversation. I cannot be more excited. I want to start with Betsy, with you. We have seen your murals and they all tell a story. I want you to think of a mural that you have painted and really think about what story you wanted to tell through that mural.
I think the one I want to focus on, actually you guys showed it in the panel, in the view. It was a collaborative piece that I did with artist Ian Pierce Ekeko, and we painted it in the summer of 2019. The mural is about the separation of families. So I was invited to participate and to collaborate with Ian. So the very large image with the afro that was on the video that you guys showed, that was actually Ian's part of the design. And then there was an image of my side, which was a young indigenous teenage girl. So with Ian's side, basically North Philadelphia is predominantly a Puerto Rican community. And we wanted to show solidarity with these communities that are crossing the border. So the mural is called Sanctuary City, Sanctuary Neighborhood. And the central image is of a young Puerto Rican girl actually breaking down the walls, and she has a massive afro that has symbolism of different parts of South America. On my side, I have a young indigenous woman that's the prominent figure, but then in the background, I have scenes that I've pulled from actual crossings of the border that show the journey. And the idea with my side was to show empathy with these folks that have made this decision to cross, the decision to leave everything that they know to be home, and how hard that is, right? So that's my mural.
No, that's amazing. I mean, just being able to have a conversation around sanctuary cities, right? And what it means to break barriers through a mural is a phenomenal feat. Osvaldo, you have historically created some very political murals across the diaspora. What is a story through one of your murals that you've been extremely passionate about telling through that mural?
I think the one that is in Paseo Boricua. I mean, I have, for me, is my most recent mural, but that mural is about celebrating the life and celebrating the freedom of Oscar Lopez, at the same time that we are talking about prison abolition and political prisoners. So, and the freedom of political prisoners that still incarcerated. So that for me is the most, the mural that gave me more satisfaction, because it was a 100% collaboration with other artists, and we did it with Agitate, that is a nonprofit that I worked for 20 years, and we did a song that we perform in front of the mural that is about the mural too. So it's really have a lot of layers. So yeah, that's probably my favorite one.
No, it's definitely one of mine, right? I worked the campaign to free Oscar, and to see a mural that depicts such the journey is such a beautiful thing. And so thank you for always being able to tell that narrative for us. Sam, you have some of my most favorite style of art. Tell us about a mural that you've painted and a story that was important for you to tell through that mural.
Thank you, Jessie. I think I would select the Mission Over Everything mural. It's in Chicago's Old Town neighborhood. And the process of creating that mural was probably the most important part for me. I worked with residents that are part of the Lincoln Park Community Services Organization, and they're homeless residents to Chicago. And they really influenced the content for the piece. So I did a couple workshops with them to learn about their journey and to learn about their life experience, and really allowed them to critique my work and how I was developing the concept, which now lives on the side of their building. It's a 20-foot by 70-foot piece. And the goal was really to, share their story and to try to get residents in the community and also people that are riding the train to step off and go into the organization and learn more about how they can help homeless residents in Chicago. So that was definitely an important one for me.
It's phenomenal. And I have the privilege of walking past a lot of your art in Chicago. And a lot of projects that not only you painted, right, but like Las Vueltas de Paseo Boricua, a project that you helped facilitate. It's always nice to have artists amongst us who take pride in collaborating, and you have been one of those artists. All of you have been those artists. And so it's great to be here with you. CRISTIAN, last but not least, make sure to unmute yourself. Tell us about a narrative that you have told through one of your murals.
So one of the murals that I think that I have done to have a more clear narrative, I did it here in Chicago by Division and Campbell. So this one was based on a community project that we interviewed a couple of community members to get the stories about what are the important and relevant issues in the community. So it came out that the one that was most mentioned was gentrification. So I was with a group of students. I asked them to Google and to pick an image that they think that represents them, and that it feels that it's it's aligned with the issue. So most of the images that I got were culturally relevant, such as the Vejigantes, the jibaro, the drummers, the dancer. But a lot of them didn't like speak for gentrification as the issue. So what I did is I arranged them in a composition, and on top of them, I painted a couple figures, painting white on top of the whole mural. So it was a way of saying the story of how the gentrification is erased the local culture.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Christian. I mean, you all tackle issues, very social issues that impact our community, right? Everything from cultural sanctuaries, gentrification, the freedom of political prisoners, the culture and the aspiration of our community, our city, and our identities within a global context. And you all have done that through your murals in such an aesthetically pleasing way, right? Very complex stories, but with such beautiful pieces. There are very dominant pieces that take over all of your murals, right? Dominant figures that really tell the story. Can you guys tell me about hidden elements that tell a less obvious narrative through your murals? Sam, what about you, right? When I look at some of your murals, I can kind of take the story because there's some dominant figures that are in your murals. But give us some of your secrets. What are some of those less obvious things that we don't necessarily pick up on?
Yeah, you know, one of the main things is really focusing on sharing stories and then also creating visibility for the LGBTQ community. And that's been a struggle in, you know, producing public art that is approved, knowing that that's going to be the content. So usually when I create a concept, I won't talk about that part. But then when I'm painting the piece, I will very intentionally make sure that a figure or something within the line work or the design represents that community. And this year, honestly, will be the first year where I'm finally starting to get approvals for murals and requests for murals to represent the LGBTQ community. So hopefully that changes a little bit more.
The first year, it speaks to your ability as an artist to really change the dynamic, right? To be able to paint murals that affirms a community that has been marginalized for decades. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Betsy, tell us, what are some less obvious themes that come from your murals that maybe an average eye won't pick up on?
So a couple years ago, I painted the Spring Garden Street Bridge, and the entire mural, you can't stand on any part of the bridge and see the entire mural. It's larger than a city block on both sides of the street. It was one of the images that was photographed in the video. So in this particular this mural actually coincided with an exhibit with the Philadelphia Museum of Art on the artists of the Mexican Revolution. So a lot of the designs that I did were inspired by Talavera tiles, but the neighboring community is the Mantua community, and they actually had a campaign called Bowls Instead of Bullets, and it was a campaign against violence. So they would plant tulips all over the neighborhood. So when designing, I wanted to support what they were doing, and we ended up incorporating over 6,000 tulips into the mural. There's a line of tulips that go under the bridge that were done on fabric. The entire mural is actually 94 5x10 corrugated aluminum panels that are attached to the bridge. And they're ridiculously intricate. The mural, again, is a block long, and our brushes were this little, and each level of paint needed 3 to 7 layers in order to be finished. And then on the bottom, we had a strip of just tulips, regular tulips that went straight through, that went out to various prisons, that went out to various community centers, went out to different high schools. So over 1,000 hands touched this particular mural. It took us about a year to make it.
Amazing. That's such a beautiful story, right? And the commitment that it takes to produce such a meaningful piece, right? And to have such symbolism that's meaningful to the artist, right? That's not necessarily always caught by the average eye. No, that's great. Christian, what about you? You have pieces that incorporate so much. What are some of the hidden themes that you sneak into your murals? Make sure to unmute.
So most of the things when I create have Puerto Rican elements, such as vejigantes, such as coquitainos, and I think that when I am creating, it doesn't always the end up product comes exactly as the concept was. For example, the one that I was speaking before, the one of the vejigantes, when I was creating, when I was passing by, one of the members of the community told me, hey, the vejigantes, they use in their hands vejigas. There's like the Spanish word for bladders. There's part of a culture that I didn't know. So those tiny elements keeps adding into the picture and are part of the collective memory. As Puerto Rico, as a nation that is colonized, I think that is relevant to add different, as much as you can, that can speak to your culture and to the collective memory. So I think those little things can add to it.
No, absolutely. I mean, it is extremely important to be able to incorporate the historical memory of a people, right? And any way you find an opportunity to do that ensures that a people doesn't lose that historical memory. And so I commend you for always keeping that in mind. We all have inspirations, right? And we are all inspired by something, or sometimes by what people say. I wonder, Osvaldo, particularly, what or who inspires you when you're creating murals, right? You tell these very unique counter narratives, I would say, to popular belief and popular narratives. What inspires you to do that? Make sure I see that you're on mute.
Yes, in the case of, I mean, when I create a mural, I'm thinking that that a mural is a way it's a medium of communication, like it's radio or TV, but it's a visual, it's an image that is not in movement. So now I'm trying to like tell a story, of course, with the mural. In the case of the last mural that I did in Chicago, what moved me was the idea of imagining what the world should be without prisoners and without prisons. And it's about prison abolition, of course. But in the story, I tried to tell the story of Oscar Lopez in a way that he was a political prisoner, but then in the same mural, he's in prison and his letters are breaking the jail that he was. And outside of prison, he's marching with the people and with current political prisoners. So I'm imagining, a world where those political prisoners are outside too. And the letters that comes out of his prison, of this jail, are breaking the jail too. So, I mean, his life is basically what inspired me to do the mural, and his actions too, the stuff that he did, and that mural is trying to imagine a world without prisons, like without jails, without police,
Absolutely.
So that was what really moved me to do that mural.
No, that's great. Yeah. And that mural particularly gives Paseo Boricua, a commercial Puerto Rican district in the city of Chicago, such a statement, right? That we can be in community, that we can be free outside of prisons, right? But that bars of prisons don't define us, right? Like when I walk past that mural, that's what I received from it. So thank you, Osvaldo. And I'm so happy that you were inspired to do it. Betsy, you sit on the first floor of your house with beautiful artwork behind you. What inspires you daily? Who or what inspires you? Unmute.
Sorry. I feel like the majority of the murals, usually, I mean, obviously different murals, you work with different communities or different organizations. So folks folks have different ideas of what they would like to see in the murals. For me, I like to focus on the everyday people, right? On people's stories. I focus on marginalized communities. I focus on the everyday people, the struggle that people go through in order to provide for their families, no? I think that for me is what's inspiring. I'm really interested in like more biographical narratives, like celebration of folks, celebration of people, highlighting the everyday that sometimes is overlooked.
No, absolutely. Biographical narratives are extremely important because we don't always get that from books. We don't always get that from popular corporate type of images, right? We can receive biographical narratives through art that's produced by our own people. And you're doing it so well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sam, who and what inspires you? I mean, there are some times where I always think like, what's in Sam's brain right now? What's next, right? Often you finish a mural, I whether you're in Chicago or anywhere else, I see you put it up on social media, and I always think, well, what's next? What else can she produce?
Thank you, Jessie. Man, you know, I'm inspired mostly by our current events. Politics play a big role in the work that I create, but really the opportunity to work in the public space. There's so much that we can do and ways that we can utilize these walls to bring together our communities, also to strike up conversations that need to happen in our communities. And it's really, you know, the content creating is fun and I enjoy that part. But when I get out into the street and I'm actually creating and painting, it's the conversations that come up. It's the interactions with people that I know are going to happen that are ultimately going to influence the next mural that I create or the next painting that I create. And really that's the part of it that I look forward to, the interaction with different residents and people that are coming by. And I mean, we have such in-depth conversations and you just really get to learn, you know, about different perspectives and where people are coming from. And I appreciate that.
The last 2 years must have been extremely inspiring for you then.
The last 4 years.
Yes, I mean, that too. No, I can imagine. And I always appreciate your ability to take our lived experiences and the reality in which we live in and to be able to so beautifully create that narrative through your murals. Christian, don't forget to unmute yourself. What inspires you? You have traveled quite a bit, right? Between the island, Chicago, and across the diaspora, blessing the world with your murals. What keeps you going? What inspires you?
Well, it's gonna sound a little bit weird, but mostly like the things that are uncomfortable for me in society. So I think that through public art is a way of reimagining reality, to advocate for the things that you want to change, and to make it public, to publicize narratives that speak to you, that speak to your people, and that are important to occupy a space between like all the advertisement and branding, to like make a space, make a dent, speak about what is the things that are relevant for social equity. So I would say that mostly like society and the social issues. Well, I guess it's because my background is in sociology, so.
Yeah. I always say that in activism, right, and in grassroots organizing, we need folks from every sector. You need people who do the protests. You need people who change the legislation. You need people who impact policy, and you need your artists to tell the narrative through colors, paints, pastels, right? And you all have done that so beautifully, right? You have quite literally taken activism to an entirely different level through your murals, and you guys completely inspired me. But we also know murals can be inspired by many things, right? By individuals, by social political realities. I wonder, however, are any of your murals inspired by film? Have you ever watched anything or seen anything that has inspired your work? Christian, let's start with you.
So, mira, specifically to see a film and like and see and feel about creating something, I would say that it's more about the ideas. I feel that every kind of art that you interact with, like it adds to your to the message it has, the ideas it has. It adds to your mentality, and it influences your creative process. Um, I would not say that I have specifically something in mind. There's a lot of films that I have watched that have a strong message. Mostly the ones that like speak about the same issues that I can relate to, such as oppression, such as colonialism, such as some of the historical problems that as Puerto Rican we have experienced. Um, but I think that not only um, uh, is in the realm of painting, but also cinema, also like theater, also like all the arts can influence. And I think that's the power of it. That's like one of the reasons that we create art. So.
No, absolutely. Betsy? Unmute.
I'm the worst at the unmuting. I think that I agree with Christian. I think for me, I think the idea of film and the humanization of certain folks, right? I think there's been a lot of things, like as folks of color, as communities of color. I mean, the way we've been depicted in social media, in film, on TV, as like this second-class citizen. I think that in a lot of more recent films, there has been a little bit of a change in this and more representation that put us in a different light. And I think for me that, like, in that sense, I think there's a lot of similarities. I haven't really painted where the work has been inspired directly. Oh, my dog just got in the shot. Where the paintings or the murals have been directly influenced by a particular film, but definitely I think the idea of watching film and really understanding how in film they humanize, and how can you humanize visually in murals. I think my work is always about this idea of empathy, right? When you create empathy and you humanize somebody, then it's really easier to relate and harder to be afraid. And I think that's a lot of where a lot of the injustices come, is when people are afraid of these communities of color.
So beautifully said. I couldn't think of a more poetic way to really make that point. Sam, have you ever been inspired by something you watched or something that was said in a film that really made you think, wow, that can be portrayed on a wall?
Definitely. I'm sure there's been many moments where I've seen something in a film, probably more so documentaries. I tend to watch a bit more documentaries than I do films. But the thing about films that I think really inspires me is seeing how other creatives create. You know, I'm fascinated with the different nuances of our lives and the layers that create who we become. And I'm always really curious to see how someone's going to share a story in a different way. And watching some of these documentaries or films, it's another way to learn about how other artists are telling narratives and sharing history or lessons for us. And that's one of the things that I appreciate about the film world.
Oh, absolutely. We know that film can inspire murals, but we also know that the opposite can be true, that murals can inspire film. Osvaldo, can you tell us how murals can be incorporated or inspire film?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I was expecting the opposite. No, I mean, I have this interaction between my artwork, like, because I do documentaries too. So in my case, artists like Patricia Guzman, filmmakers like Patricia Guzman from Chile, Fernando Solanas from Argentina, or Juan Carlos Davila from Puerto Rico, are filmmakers or documentarians that really inspire me to do work. In the case of Patricia Guzman, was one of the first filmmakers with his film La Batalla de Chile, that when I was really young, I saw it and like, oh my God, I want to be a political artist. So in that sense, like really moved me. In the case of the mural that I did in Chicago, have a lot of elements of film because even the letters that he writes looks like a film, like an old school film. And I'm inspired by a lot of artists to produce work, including films. Like I say, like artists like Patricia Guzman, like really inspire me. I imagine that what I say to people that want to, I think that you have to see what do you want to talk about and what medium you should use, and not be limited by that. For example, the mural that we did in Chicago is an image, it's an image, but it's a performance that we did there because was we have a public that we're unveiling the mural, so we wanted to put music and tell a story with singing in the mural. So I don't know if I'm answering the question, but
yeah, no, that's great.
What I'm trying to say is that like look for other artists that inspire you, but then don't limit yourself to just one medium. Like mural is one way to communicate ideas, but you can use anything. If you have a camera, just take pictures of your community, of your people, of your struggle. If you have a phone, record, make stories with a phone, with audio. Like that's the key, like to use any medium possible to communicate the ideas, especially ideas that are trying to transform society, and that is quite overwhelming, but we can try to do something about it with our art. So that's all I have to say, really, is just let's do stuff,
Yeah.
No, thank you so much. Yes, go ahead, Betsy.
I was going to just jump on that. I think the idea is really about the willingness to explore, other mediums, other genres, and see that idea. I mean, I think all of us are saying the same thing. Is like this idea of seeing how other people are using different mediums in order to express. So I think when we're thinking about how murals affect film, I think when you look at all different kinds of genres and how you can use like a space to do poetry or music or storytelling or theater or film, I mean, I feel like there's a braid of all of these different kinds of mediums that we could all use in order to be able to kind of share these stories, and it's about being able to tap in.
No, absolutely. So Mira, in the comments, they're telling me that I'm freezing. But we know that technology is unpredictable. It's not reliable. Or, maybe I forgot to pay my Comcast bill. No sé. Pero I hope that we have figured it out and people can see me a bit better. Sam, what do you think? You think your murals can inspire film?
I think the process of creating some of my murals can inspire film, for sure. With that question, I think about the mural that my wife and I painted in Morocco in 2018. It's the first woman to be invited to paint a piece out there. And that was a challenge in itself. But also it's illegal to be part of the LGBTQ community in Morocco. So more so our experience of the things that we had to do as women and as members of the LGBTQ community in order to paint that piece probably could have definitely inspired a film. And then also just, culturally being there as women doing something that is typically something that is seen as a male's role or a job that men do, just how other women are influenced by each other and get inspired from that. I think, there's lots of stories that, particularly with female muralists, I think there's still a lot of growth in the industry for us.
So you mean to tell me that you and your wife paint murals together?
Yeah, sometimes she joins me. Yes, not as often these days, but yes, for probably
that
about
is
5 or 6
romantic.
years.
That is romantic. And if I don't have that, I don't want it. I don't want it if I don't have that. Wow. That is beautiful. It's so cute.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I envy you now. Thanks for that. I mean, get murals together and travel together. Who doesn't want that?
I was gonna say it's a way to travel together.
Absolutely.
Who does not want that? Ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Fine. Be that cute. Sorry, wife, I said hi. All right. You all got started somehow, right? You were all inspired to tell your stories, of a people, to tell your stories of a community, of a historical narrative in some form of another. Tell me how and why did you start painting murals? Osvaldo, how and why? How long ago?
Oh, a long time ago, almost 20 years. I mean, I first time I went to Chicago was to do a mural, and was one of my first mural. Later on, I when I graduated from my BA in the Escuela de Artes Plásticas in Puerto Rico, I dive in an organization called Agitarte, and we did a lot of murals in Puerto Rico, and some of them in Santurce, with a anti-gentrification campaign that we did in el Museo de Barrio San Mateo de Cangrejo in Santurce. We did murals to talk about the gentrification of that community that now is gone. And we learned a lot in those days. We did these murals that are really like complicated, and that took a lot of time to make. And after we finished them, the government came and erased them in one day. And we learned really quick that, hey, this is not effective. It's you spending too many hours. So we start to do other type of mural, like more bombing, kind of like taking from the graffiti artwork, like doing murals that were done in 2 hours, 1 hour, go there,
Wow.
talk about the message, anti-gentrification in Santurce, and then the mural was erased. It becomes this war between the authorities and the people from the community that were doing the mural in Santurce. So yeah, you have to be, you have to fight authority too when authority is oppressive. So that's how I learned. I mean, I learned on the street, and I learned through collaborations too. I never made one mural by myself. In my case, in my studio, my work is about my ideas. But when I do murals, I collaborate with other people with the ideas. I might design part of the elements, but then through conversations. In the case of the last mural in Chicago, I did it with another artist, with two other artists, Jose Hernandez and Estefania Cortez, that are artists that collaborate with Agitarte too. That collaboration for me is really important when I do something like a mural,
No,
perhaps because I'm not
awesome.
Perhaps it's because I'm not as good as the people here, and I need other people to help me.
You are great, and we all know that collaboration is what can make dreams a reality, and you have done that so well. Thank you. Christian, tell me, how and why did you get started painting murals?
So when I moved to Chicago from the isla in Puerto Rico, I always used to design. So I started working with the Puerto Rican Cultural Center, and they had a festival that was Fiesta Boricua. They still have that festival going on. So one day they asked me to do a mural for a town that they invited, like Calle. So I did a small mural, boom, 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 finish it. And next year they asked me for another one, and little by little people start calling. And after that, I started like looking for it more. So I think that it was not something that I expected. It was something that just happened.
Yeah, well, we all know that accidental things may cause the greatest time of our life. And so I hope that you are having a phenomenal time in your life. There are, I'm sure, many people across the world who want to be able to tell their stories or the stories of other people through murals. What advice would you give them if this was a lifestyle that they wanted to take? Betsy?
I would say definitely collaborate. If the idea of collaboration isn't one that's there, visit artist studios, find out who's doing this public artwork, and volunteer. I feel like I have a lot of folks that come in and start off as volunteers, and I end up hiring them. You know, if they come in and they help me and they're great like workers, I end up getting a commission, and then I usually bring folks that tend to be around me on. And it's just I think being exposed to various kinds of artists, being exposed to different approaches to the work is really important. So it's really important to research work. It's really important to look at work. It's really important to visit museums, go to people's studios, see how they set things up. I mean, some muralists could be really, really organized, and some could be really, really messy and still produce absolutely incredible work. So it's really important to really see what kind of work and how, you know, it makes more sense for you, you know? So you just volunteer in as many studios as possible, and then just, you know, I think it's about always just starting. You don't wait around for somebody to say, you know, you're an artist. You gotta claim it.
No, absolutely. You have to claim it. Sam, what about you? What suggestions would you give to others who might want to tell their stories through murals?
Well, I definitely agree with everything that Betsy mentioned, but also build a strong portfolio first and foremost. You know, trying to get approvals and permission to put something up that's a little bit more permanent is very different than showing in a gallery or, you know, in your own studio. But also take the time to learn about the different surfaces and different materials that you need to learn to paint on these different surfaces. Try to get flexible with different mediums. You know, paint and brush is great, but sometimes you might need to use something different depending on the surface that you're working with. And then also just, you know, learn about those details so that you can help communicate with your client and let them know what to expect as far as how long it's going to be up. I think that's important when we're doing, you know, pieces that are really this big and in communities.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's great advice. Osvaldo, what would you have to offer to future artists who want to utilize murals for storytelling?
What I have to offer? Wow. I really don't know, but I mean that to talk about what makes you feel uncomfortable too. Like sometimes that's really important, you know, and that's something that I try to do and to challenge myself of how. Oh my God, it's a difficult question and I'm blocked. I don't know, to be honest. I don't know what I have to offer except for creating images that hopefully move forward what I think is right, you know, and to be political and to be bold too and to be defined, you know, what Sam said, that, you know, I cannot imagine what she had to go through to go to Morocco and do a mural, you know.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff is that what we have to do, you know, be defined, because the world and the state is in the best case scenario oppressive, you know, in this society, and we have to be defined. We have to fight for what we think is right, you know.
No,
justice.
Absolutely. Osvaldo, you have a signature response to all my questions. I've learned it in 45 minutes. You laugh and you say, wow. Christian, tell us, what would you share with future artists? What suggestions do you have? And then we're going to wrap up this beautiful session.
I think that everything that Betsy, Sam, and Osvaldo said are like good advices. I think they're the best advices. I think that one of the problems that I have had is the collaboration. I think that sometimes when you start working, it's a very lonely career. So you isolate yourself and you start working on your own craft, trying to do things. But I think it's very important to learn to work with other people. because we don't live in an isolate world. And if you want to like your work to thrive, you need to let yourself to be influenced to learn from others too.
No, absolutely. That is very sound advice. And I appreciate you all as artists. We are going to wrap up today. And so I want to give you guys about 30 to 45 seconds to provide closing remarks and any further advice and thoughts that you want to give young people, right? This is Tu Cuenta Cine Youth Fest, a youth festival that truly allows us to bring experiences and educational programming to our young people. So, Betsy, what the final remarks? What do you want to let young people know? Straight out of Philadelphia. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Just thank you for the invitation here. For folks interested in any kind of career in public art or anything, just reach out to folks. I think folks are a lot more willing to take folks in and have folks around. I mean, at least I am. So reach out to folks. If they say no, move on to the next one. Don't let it stop you.
Absolutely. Osvaldo, what last piece of words or advice you have?
Yeah, I think that we have, as a cultural workers, we have to create work that create new ethics and new morals and new hegemony. And that's what we all doing here with our murals and with our artwork, is to try to create a new hegemony of justice, where exploitation is over, you know? So, yeah, you have to question the state, you have to question authority, and use a mural, whatever medium you have, to fight oppression, you know, in every
Absolutely.
field, you know, in every front, really.
Absolutely. Christian?
So I think that if you're putting something on public, it would be good to have meaning, to create meaning into why is this like occupy a space in public. And I think that one thing is get the work started. I think that's 50% of the job. So
Yes. Sam?
I think the biggest thing I'd say is have fun with it. You know, like if you're not having fun doing it, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Even as tired as I am right now, I'm loving it. And also learn from other artists, but also make sure you carve your own path. Like there's a lot of different ways you can run a career like this. And I think being true to yourself and making sure you're applying what you can learn from others, but also going with your gut and your own intuition and making that own lane for yourself is important too.
Absolutely.
No, that is such a phenomenal way to end this panel, right? Betsy, Osvaldo, Sam, Christian, I want to thank you all not only for the beautiful artwork that you blessed the entire world with, but I want to thank you for your activism in the process. You tell narratives that are extremely important. So thank you all. I will see you soon. And thank you for having me. I want the audience to know, I want you to come back June 9th. I want you to join me for another amazing conversation with actors, MCs, videographers, photographers, forging a vision within reality. It's a conversation that needs to happen. We have phenomenal people. We have Ivan Vega. We have people who create amazing art through different mediums. Please join us Wednesday, June 9th, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Want to emphasize the Eastern time so the folks don't miss us. Again, making the visible invisible, forging a vision of reality. I want to thank you guys so much. It has been a privilege to host this show, Tu Cuenta Cine Youth Festival, powered by HITN, a worldwide broadcasting network that brings educational programming to your home. Thank you again for having me, and have a great evening and afternoon. Please do not forget to visit our website, HITN, and now I'm going to take you to the sponsors. Thank you.
Thanks to our sponsors, we continue to have important conversations that educate and inspire the most valuable asset for a brighter future, the new generation of Latinx creatives. Visit cineyouthfest.org to find out more, because tu cuentas. all have a story to tell, and your story matters. Now more than ever, that's why we've created CINE Youth Fest, a cinema festival and a platform for independent voices, positive change, stories of heroism from the lens of a Latinx experience. Join the adventure on our website, cineyouthfest.org. There, you will find all you need to participate in the competition. The rules of the game, Latinx in film, where you find out how important we really are. Classes behind the camera with people who know. Stories from others like you who have a dream, big ideas, and awesome goals. Raise your voice to be heard. Show off to be seen. And be part of history sharing your story. Lights, camera, acción. Because tú cuentas. Powered by HITN. Thanks to our sponsors, we continue to have important conversations that educate and inspire the most valuable asset for a brighter future, the new generation of Latinx creatives.